Everyone, let's just take a moment. Close your eyes if you feel safe to. Place your attention not on the noise around you, but the stillness within you. Breathe in and feel that intelligence, the divine, the field, the source, whatever you want to call it, because it's not outside of you. It is you. Now open your eyes and let's explore something real, something most people feel but struggle to name. We're talking about how to really know that God is directing your life. And there are signs, clear, magnetic, aligned signs. You just have to become aware of them, not through the analytical mind, but by tuning into the language of the soul. Because the divine doesn't shout, it whispers. So let me offer you 7 ways to recognize when that whisper is guiding your every step. 1. Synchronicities multiply. You start seeing coincidences that aren't random. You think of someone and they call. You open a book to exactly the line you needed. These are not accidents. They're evidence of an intelligent energy coordinating your path. When synchronicities increase, it means your internal state is aligned with divine intelligence. You're broadcasting on a frequency that the universe responds to. You're not chasing. You're magnetizing. 2. Old doors close. Fast ever had something fall apart, and at first it feels like loss. But then it feels like liberation. That job, that relationship, that environment. It gets stripped away, not because you're being punished, but because you're being positioned. The divine often leads you by removing what no longer resonates with your evolution. Don't resist the closed doors. They're rerouting you to higher ground. 3. You feel pulled, not pushed. There's a subtle but powerful difference between striving and flowing. When God is directing your life, your efforts feel supported. You're not forcing, you're following. You're not grinding, you're guided. It's like you're in a river. You still swim, but the current is helping you. That current, that's divine momentum. 4, you're guided by intuition over logic. Logic is beautiful, but intuition is wisdom without reasoning. When you're being led by the divine, you start trusting the feeling that doesn't make sense, but feels right. It's the nudge to call someone, the idea that won't leave you alone, the whisper to walk a different way home, and suddenly everything changes. God speaks not through fear or overthinking, but through clarity without explanation. 5. You're at peace in the unknown. When you're truly in alignment with divine flow, you don't need all the answers. You stop needing control. You stop needing certainty. You become okay with becoming. There's a trust that arises, not blind faith, but a deep cellular knowing that you're being held by something far more intelligent than your ego mind. 6. You attract people who reflect your soul's journey. Suddenly, the right people start appearing, not just surface-level relationships, but soul mirrors, mentors, partners, collaborators, healers. They're not coincidences, they're coordinates. When you're walking the path the divine laid out for you, your energy becomes like a lighthouse, and the ones who are meant to walk with you find you. 7. You feel expanded. Even when it's hard, this one is subtle, but it's the most powerful. Even in moments of challenge, loss, or fear, you feel something larger holding you. You feel stretched, but not broken. Humbled, but not hopeless. You're evolving, and your inner self knows it. And you stop asking, why is this happening to me? And start asking, what is this awakening in me? So, how do you know God is directing your life? You feel the frequency shift. You become a participant in your own becoming. And you no longer walk alone, even when you're the only one in the room. The divine doesn't scream, it aligns. And when your inner world begins to echo the higher intelligence of love, presence, and surrender, that's how you know. Let that truth settle. Breathe into it, because God isn't coming to your life. God is already here, and you are finally listening. You start noticing patterns, little moments that seem too precise to be random. You think about someone you haven't spoken to in years, and they text you. A book falls off a shelf and opens to a passage that speaks directly to what you're going through. A conversation with a stranger answers a question you've been silently carrying. These are synchronicities, and while many people brush them off as coincidences, those who are tuned in know better. When God is directing your life, these occurrences become more frequent, more obvious, and more meaningful. They feel like breadcrumbs on a trail, guiding you towards something greater, something intentional. These moments don't just surprise you, they stir something within you. You start to feel a presence behind them, an intelligence that knows what you need, when you need it, and how best to deliver it so you'll actually pay attention. It's not about magic or superstition. It's about energy aligning. You are no longer just living in the material world. You're in conversation with the unseen, with the divine matrix that responds to your internal state. The more aware and open you become, the more these synchronicities increase. It's as if the universe is mirroring back your inner clarity, your trust, your readiness to be led. Instead of planning every move, you begin listening. Instead of striving, you notice the signs and feel where the energy wants to go. Your life begins to flow, not because it's free from problems, but because you're now aware of the signals trying to guide you through them. You're not waiting for proof that you are the proof. Synchronicities are confirmations from the divine, responding to your frequency, showing you that you are seen, you are heard, and most importantly, you are in alignment. Sometimes things fall apart so quickly, it leaves you breathless. The job you thought was secure suddenly ends. The relationship you poured your soul into comes to an unexpected close. The path you were so sure of gets blocked without warning. In those moments, it's easy to feel like something is going wrong. But when God is directing your life, closed doors are not signs of failure. They're signs of protection, redirection, and divine timing at work behind the scenes. These endings often come not because you're off track, but because you're being pulled onto a higher one. When something no longer serves your growth, no longer matches your evolving frequency, isn't part of where your soul is meant to go next, it begins to lose alignment. You may try to hold on. You may even pray for it to stay. But the divine sees beyond your present desires and into your deeper becoming. And so what's not meant for you starts to dissolve, not out of cruelty, but out of mercy. These closed doors hurt. Yes, they confuse the mind. But something inside, the deeper, quieter part of you, starts to feel the space being made for something new. It's uncomfortable. It challenges your attachment to plans, to people, to versions of yourself that no longer fit. But it's also sacred. The loss becomes the invitation to trust. The disruption becomes the doorway, and eventually what once felt like a breakdown begins to reveal itself as a breakthrough in disguise. This is the refinement process, a pruning of what doesn't belong in the next chapter. And the more you resist, the harder it becomes. But when you recognize that these closures are not random, but intentional, you stop fighting them and begin to see them for what they truly are. Divine detours with purpose woven into every thread. There's a distinct difference between being pushed by pressure and being pulled by purpose. When God is directing your life, you begin to feel that pull, gentle but unmistakable. It's not about external demands or expectations anymore. It's about something inside you calling you forward, something that doesn't require force to follow. You don't have to convince yourself to keep going. You don't have to hustle to prove your worth. Instead, there's a quiet momentum carrying you, like a current beneath the surface, moving you in the direction you're meant to go. You start to notice that things begin aligning without constant effort. Opportunities arise that feel organic, not forced. Conversations flow. Ideas arrive at the perfect moment. Even when challenges show up, there's an inner steadiness, a sense that you're still on the right path. You're not running on stress anymore. You're moving with intention. The striving, the endless to-do list, the pressure to perform, it all starts to lose its grip because now you're led by something deeper than ambition. You're led by meaning, by resonance, by truth. This pull doesn't always make sense to others. It might not come with a clear roadmap or a 10-step plan, but it brings with it a sense of peace even in uncertainty. You may not know exactly where you're going, but you feel connected to the journey. You stop measuring progress by how much you've achieved and start sensing it in how aligned you feel. The external pace slows down, but the internal expansion accelerates. When God is guiding you, you no longer chase validation or outcomes. You respond to inspiration. You show up not to impress, but to express. And what once felt like a grind begins to feel like grace in motion. Like you're no longer carrying the weight alone. There comes a point when logic can no longer lead the way. When the steps don't add up on paper, but something in your heart says, go anyway. That's the moment you realize you're no longer navigating life solely from the mind. You're being led by intuition. And when God is directing your life, intuition becomes louder, clearer, and more consistent. It's not a fleeting emotion or a random gut feeling. It's a deep knowing that defies conventional reasoning. It's the quiet confidence that something is right, even if you can't explain why. You begin to trust those inner nudges, the ones that prompt you to call someone out of the blue. Take a different route. Say yes to an opportunity that seems risky, or walk away from something that looks perfect on the surface. You stop asking, does this make sense? And start asking, does this feel true? Because divine direction doesn't always fit into a logical framework. It speaks in symbols, sensations, and subtle signs. It moves through dreams, whispers, and the resonance of peace. The more you act on that inner voice, the more it strengthens. You notice that when you follow it, things unfold in ways your mind could never have planned. And when you ignore it, there's a quiet dissonance, a feeling that something is off, even if everything looks right. That contrast teaches you to listen more closely, to lean in rather than analyze, to feel your way forward instead of think your way through. Intuition is the language of the divine. It bypasses the noise of the external world and speaks directly to your soul. It's precise, personal, and perfectly timed. And when you begin honoring it, you step into a rhythm that isn't bound by fear or logic, but by trust and alignment. There's a shift that happens when you stop needing all the answers and start trusting the unfolding. When God is directing your life, peace begins to settle in your soul, not because everything is certain, but because you're no longer afraid of the unknown. The urge to control every detail, to predict every outcome, to plan 5 steps ahead, it starts to dissolve. And in its place is a calm assurance that you're being guided, even when the next step isn't visible yet. This peace isn't passive, it's powerful. It holds you steady when circumstances are shifting. It reminds you that clarity doesn't always come first. Sometimes it comes only after you take the step. You learn to rest in the in-between spaces. Those moments where the old is gone and the new hasn't fully arrived. Instead of rushing to fill the silence, you start listening in it. Instead of fearing the space between here and there, you begin to feel the sacredness of it. The unknown becomes less of a threat and more of a sacred container for possibility. You start to realize that not knowing is part of the process. It creates room for miracles. It invites trust. It forces you to lean on something beyond your intellect. You begin to notice how often the most beautiful parts of life came out of the unpredictable, the unplanned, the places where you had no control but still moved forward anyway. When peace shows up in uncertainty, it's a sign you're aligned with divine flow. It means your soul recognizes something your mind hasn't caught up with yet. You're no longer reacting from fear. You're responding from faith. That shift, that quiet calm in the chaos is not something you manufacture. It's something that comes when you finally surrender to the knowing that you are held when God is directing your life. The right people begin to appear, not by accident, but by divine timing. You start attracting relationships that feel purposeful, resonant, and aligned with who you're becoming. These aren't just people who match your interests. They match your energy. They reflect back to you the growth you've stepped into, the healing you've embraced, and the truth you've started to embody. There's a recognition, often unspoken, like you've known them longer than time has measured. These connections don't require you to shrink, perform, or explain yourself. They meet you where you are, and they challenge you to rise without demanding perfection. Sometimes they come as teachers, sometimes as companions, sometimes as brief but powerful reminders of who you really are. They bring clarity, insight, encouragement, or even disruption that shakes you awake in the best way. And it's not always comfortable, but it always feels guided. You begin to notice that the people who no longer serve your journey naturally fade out, not from bitterness, but from misalignment. There's less drama, less force, less resistance. Instead, you feel a sense of flow. Conversations feel deeper. Collaborations feel more inspired. Support feels sincere. You no longer chase connection. You attract it by being who you truly are. It's not about the number of people around you, but the frequency they carry. And the more you walk in divine alignment, the more your relationships become a mirror of that alignment. People start showing up who see your vision, who support your healing, who speak the same language of the soul. It's not about finding them. It's about becoming the version of you that they naturally gravitate toward. Your path becomes magnetic. Your presence becomes a signal. And those meant to walk with you simply appear when God is directing your life. Growth doesn't always come wrapped in comfort. In fact, some of the most divinely guided seasons can also feel like the most uncertain, the most challenging, even the most painful. But underneath the discomfort, there's a sense of expansion happening. You feel yourself being stretched, called higher, refined. And while your mind might resist it, something deeper within you knows that this is part of the becoming. You're not being punished, you're being prepared. There's a quiet strength that begins to emerge. Even when things don't go according to plan, you don't crumble like you once did. You may feel the weight of it, but you don't break. Instead, there's a strange kind of clarity that lives inside the storm. You start to sense that there's meaning in the mess, that something sacred is happening beneath the surface. You may not be able to name it yet, but you can feel it shaping you. Pain becomes less about suffering and more about shedding. The things that used to define you start to fall away. In old beliefs, outdated identities, relationships that kept you small. And it hurts to let them go, but you realize they were never meant to stay. This isn't destruction, it's transformation. It's the fire that burns away everything that's not aligned with the truth of who you are. You become more present, more real, more open. The hard moments don't push you into despair like they used to. They push you into depth. They open up new space inside you for wisdom, for compassion, for strength you didn't know you had. And even in the stretching, even in the uncertainty, there's a subtle but unshakable knowing that you're exactly where you're meant to be, and that something beautiful is unfolding through it all when you begin to walk in alignment with divine guidance. The need for control gradually fades. At first it feels uncomfortable. After all, we are taught to plan, to organize, to secure our future. But slowly you start to notice that the more you let go of the need to control, the more things fall into place without your constant interference. It's as if life itself begins to move in harmony with your intentions, and every step you take is met with unseen support. There's a quiet trust that begins to form within you, a belief that the universe or God is already orchestrating your path in ways you cannot fully comprehend yet. Instead of obsessing over every decision or trying to force outcomes, you find yourself surrendering to the flow of life. You realize that the perfect opportunities, the right people, and the answers you need will appear when you're in alignment. The constant push to make things happen starts to dissolve, and you feel lighter, more at ease. There's a knowing that you don't have to carry the weight of every choice on your shoulders. There's no more frantic searching for the right answer, because you understand that sometimes the answer is simply to allow things to unfold in their own time. As you step into this space of surrender, you start to feel more connected to the present moment. There's less anxiety about the future because you trust that you're being led to where you need to go. You stop overthinking every step, and instead you begin to listen, to feel, to intuitively respond to the signals life is sending. In this place, the chaos of trying to control fades, and what's left is a sense of peace, knowing that things are working out as they should. As you begin to align more deeply with the divine flow in your life, you notice a subtle but profound shift in your energy. You no longer feel drained by the daily grind or the demands of the outside world. Instead, there's a sense of being supported. It's as if your efforts are no longer met with resistance, but with a natural ease that propels you forward. Even in challenging situations, you feel more capable, more present, and more connected to a source of energy that is larger than anything you've known before. This shift doesn't mean that you stop working hard or facing difficulties, but it changes the way you approach them. Instead of feeling overwhelmed, you begin to experience challenges as opportunities for growth and transformation. The energy you once spent on fighting or resisting now gets redirected into creativity, problem solving, and alignment with your purpose. You become more resilient, more resourceful, and more attuned to the subtle ways in which support manifests in your life. It could come through people, ideas, opportunities, or even a simple moment of clarity in the middle of chaos. Your energy feels lighter, more expansive, as if you are no longer operating from a place of fear or scarcity. You begin to notice synchronicities, helpful people showing up at the right time, and moments of deep insight that give you the clarity you need. There's a sense of flow that moves through you, and you can feel it in your body, in your spirit, and in the way you interact with the world around you. You begin to trust that whatever comes your way, you have the inner resources to navigate it. Life doesn't feel like a battle anymore. It feels like a co-creation between you and the divine, and you are supported at every turn. God's directing your life. You begin to trust in the unseen more than the visible, in the unknown more than the known. You shift from relying solely on what your eyes can see and what your mind can rationalize to believing in the deeper currents of life that guide you in ways your intellect can't fully explain. How fully explain? The external world often gives us proof, numbers, facts, and data. It gives us structure, but the divine flow asks us to trust in things beyond structure, things like intuition, moments of grace, and spontaneous inspiration. It's a kind of trust that grows over time as you witness how things align in ways you never anticipated, how challenges often lead to unexpected blessings, how doors open when you least expect them. As you deepen into this trust, you begin to feel more certain about your path, even when the details are unclear. You stop needing every answer to be laid out in front of you. You realize that faith is not about having everything figured out. It's about moving forward with confidence, even when you can't see the entire road ahead. You start to know that if you're being led in a certain direction, even if it seems uncertain or unconventional, there's a purpose to it. It's not about understanding the how or the why right away. It's about trusting the direction you're being guided toward. This trust transforms your relationship with life. Instead of feeling like you're in a constant state of proving, striving, or chasing outcomes, you begin to walk with a quiet, knowing that life is unfolding exactly as it should. You become more comfortable with the mystery and less dependent on visible evidence, knowing that the divine is always working behind the scenes to bring you to where you need.